Okay, well, thanks everyone for joining. It's great to have you here today. So as you may all already know, the book has 5 sections which spell dream. D is for recovery, D is for discovery, R is for recovery, E for envisioning. And today we're looking at A for action, which is the quote there, which I love. Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. And that's by Maya Angelou. So before we go any further, actually, what does that say to you when you hear that? What resonates? What comes up?
Well, it says to me, keep going, continue, regardless
Okay.
of the challenge.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Definitely resonates. I'm struggling to put my finger on why exactly, but I think, yeah, just that continuation of wanting to strive to be better.
Yeah.
But it just makes sense.
Yeah, it's an interesting quote, and I think one of the pieces we're going to read later on will probably come back and speak into it a bit more, so I'm going to kind of leave it there, but I'll give my own personal experience with taking action. I'm one of these people that potentially you might put in the box of procrastinator. So if you're like, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, I can see that I need to do it, but kind of, yeah. And then there's all sorts of reasons why it has or hasn't happened. And then, interesting enough, a change of circumstances or some prompt or something will happen. All of a sudden, the thing that's been sitting around will all of a sudden get done just like that, which is quite an interesting dynamic, really. And I can't necessarily say I've managed to bottom all of that out in my experience. But again, this book is not about being an expert at anything. It's really about reflecting on things to see what then comes out to you when you start looking at it. So interesting enough, I'm going to start not in the order that the poems actually appear in the book, and we'll see why that is in a minute. So if we go to, if you're following in your book, page 133, that will be Being Me. I'd like to start with that piece, because I think it opens up kind of the vista of and gives us context, I believe. And I've put a text there, which was my inspiration for it. And you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free, which is kind of a biblical text. Have they gone? Can I take it off now? It weighs a ton, this mask that I wear. It's the only way I know to hide what I see, just so I don't have to face me. I had visions of perfection, doing all things right. I shouldn't let the side down. Mustn't give a bad impression of the team. Everyone else seems to be doing better than me. At least so it seems. It's hard to tell who is wearing one like me. I could not afford to be me. A price too high to pay. All those tongues wagging and the disapproving looks from those who had this whole thing down to a T. It was clear to all concerned that I hadn't done enough, trying much harder to perform, earning the right to show up as me. Disappointment lingers on inside. I'm not who they want me to be, so I sport this false accessory. At least I fit in, as long as I'm not alone with me. My actions showed me who I was, a memory of who I used to be. The more I look, the more I see, till I know who I really am. A wonderful creation full of love. Then and only then can my actions fall in line with the reality at large within me. a human being, not a human doing. Hence I know I am, so I do. Oh, what liberty I have from the truth that has set me free. It's okay just to be me. Welcome, Danny. There's quite a lot in there, but I'm just curious as to what's landing for people, really.
I think for me, the notion of wearing a mask definitely resonated. It was interesting then, the second verse, when you went on to, you know, talk about the team and how it was there. I think for me, it was about just feeling like I had to be that persona that everybody else, or that I perceived everybody else expected me to be, rather than doing it for what I felt was required to keep up with the team or do what was required there. So yeah, it resonated, but perhaps from a slightly different angle. But ultimately, yeah, that message of, in the end, of not having to wear that mask and just being more comfortable in being me and the benefit of being me, and then learning to like me rather than what I perceived I should be, is so powerful. And yeah, I like how it's wrapped up in here.
Yeah, there's something very powerful about what you said there, which is the whole thing about we create the perception of what we believe people want us to be. So everything is still coming from here, but it's projected out, which is an interesting point. Karen, you look like there's something just on the tip there. What are you going to say?
Yeah, I suppose what comes to mind is a picture of when I was younger.
Okay.
At school. And you know, there were challenges at home, and I had a face for school, of managing and being happy, and then so when we go down to so that's, you know, that's a phase in the verse 2. You know, the team are my school friends, the group, you know, having that phase, and then not wanting to tell because of judgments, you know, about wagging tongues and so forth, you know, because of perceptions and who I believe I should be and what I feel they think I should be. So, you know, it's like a false life, you know, bipolar, one could call it, you know, in terms of schizophrenia, being this black person at school and then being this complete contrast person at home. Because wanting to fit in and not wanting judgments and tongues to work. Yeah. And then, you know, the thought comes to me, so have I dropped that face? Have I dropped that face? Or, you know, is there an element of me that still carries that? So it's just reflecting and questioning. What's your truth, Karen? Are you now this who you really are? Or is it just another face? Or a different place?
Yeah, I really hear what you're saying there, and I think, to be honest and truthful, I think this is something you're always kind of looking at, because I think some of it happens subconsciously, and you only catch yourself later, and that's what's going on in that. But I think what's also interesting is something that Emma said earlier as well, is this whole idea of, if you judge that if you were to be your true self, that wouldn't be good enough to present, that judgment also comes from you. So it's the judgment of yourself, you're judging yourself there. And that's an interesting thing, because that's almost where the inquiry starts. How can I embrace all of me with my failings. I would like you in this forum to believe I am perfect. Why? Because I judge that if I wasn't perfect, that wouldn't be good enough. Whereas we all know, as we'll find out in another piece, it's contentious what perfect looks like.
It's interesting listening to you then, Karen, as well. And I think you're right. It absolutely goes back to school when you start to wear this mask, isn't it? And secondary school in particular, I think. But again, listening to some of the discussion between you there as well, I was reading Someone I Used to Know this morning, one of your other poems, Frank, and I think, you know, they are linked. And Karen, you kind of alluded to this as well, that you wear this mask and you start to lose that sense of who you are, because you've got a mask, or it might be multiple masks depending on the scenario that you're in or the group that you're in, and gradually it starts to erode who you are. So finding it again is magical.
Yeah, I love that. Raquel, Danny, anything coming up for you in this piece? This is the piece Being Me on page 133, in case you're not.
Yeah, that's interesting what everybody says. It all resonates with me, and I've been battling with that more so the last 5 years than any other time, because it came to enlighten. I was enlightened that, you know, I am not being me. Just recently, all the time I thought I was me, but in essence, I was actually moving around with the group or the family, or trying to be what I perceive people want me to be. But in the last year or so, I've been battling with the fact that, you know, I need to discover who I am. I think I said that the last time we met. I'm really on the verge of, I'm at this point where I'm rediscovering myself. And this is actually helping me to, you know, to highlight certain points in my life. And what resonates with me here is that the disappointment lingers on inside. I'm not who they want me to be. So even though I'm trying to, you know, rediscover who I am, the disappointment just keeps coming. I'm still looking at what people want me to be, I think, and I get disappointed. But then, you know, I see that there's hope. Where you go, my actions showed me who I was, a memory of who I used to be. And then I look back and I think, well, I've done this and I've done that, and I'm looking at the positive things that I've done. So my actions are now showing me who I am, you know, and why, you know, if I've done something and I've done something that I feel is good, and then I'm judging it on, I've seen to be, well, I'm trying to now look at what I've done. For instance, I've helped, yeah, I'm a grandmother, you know, to me, that's a good thing, you know, and I've looked, well, I've come this far and I've got to see my grandchildren. So I've achieved something. So I'm not looking to compare what I've achieved to what other people have achieved. I'm looking at what I've done and looking at what I'm doing now and just congratulating myself. But I got to admit, I do find disappointment sometimes because I'm looking at comparing others still.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying there, and I think this is an ongoing journey. That there is no button here. And being aware certainly puts you in a more powerful place than when you weren't aware. And I think when things are in your conscious awareness, I think that begins to empower you. And even if you only catch it after, you're catching it, you're seeing it. And over time, transformation happens through insight. And I think that's being aware and being happy to sit with knowing that's going on without judging yourself, I think is a powerful thing as well. I'm conscious we haven't heard from Danny. You're mute at the moment. Or is that intentional, Danny, or are you happy to kind of just chime in with what's come up for you? You're on mute, Danny, if you're speaking. Okay, so let me go to anything else from anyone else, actually, before we move on from this piece. I'm going to go to 126. It is a very deep piece, to be fair, and if we had to do it real justice, we could probably spend the whole session just on that piece alone, I reckon. But then again, that's the opportunity to do deeper work, which I've left a link in the in there if someone wants to discuss that further or see how that applies to them directly. There's a link to book a chat with me in that in the chat. Okay, so page 126. This is change. My world changed, yet everything remained the same. That which is now seen could no longer be unseen. The elephant in the room no longer invisible. The blur came into focus as the scene became clear. New eyepiece, new view, assumed certainties no longer safe. The villain of the piece was no longer without the chance to journey towards better.
Sorry, Frank, what page was that?
That's page 126.
126.
Yeah. I'm going to start the second verse again. The villain of the piece was no longer without the chance to journey towards better, paid for by my current discomfort. Great opportunity to own what is mine. The power of change now firmly in my gift. To show up differently, refresh energy. To start the chain of change, so nothing remains the same.
Can you talk about this one a little bit more for me, Frank? Because this one's not landing with me in the same way that the other one did.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, but I'll see if anybody else has a perspective on it.
Okay.
Before I do that, Karen, what about you? Do you see anything there?
Yeah, but do you know what? I am going to just speak. Because Danny is not contributing, I'm uncomfortable. I know that's really a strange thing to say, but
Yeah, she's yeah. There's the note in there. I cannot unmute. It says, Danny, what you could try is could go back out and come back in and see if that sorts it out. If not, we'll just type whatever comments you have in the chat. That's fine.
yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you, Frank. Sorry, I just have to call it out.
No, that's fine. But that's part of what we're talking about here, being you, right? Being you and you know, respectfully as well. So that's fine. Okay, go on.
Well, my world's changed in so many different ways. You know, and I reflect back and I think, like, my question to me is, was the change voluntary or was it imposed? And no longer being invisible, how did that serve me? Is it better to be invisible? In some situations I'm thinking about, you know, being visible hasn't always been a positive experience.
It's an interesting point there, Karen. And I think there's a general premise that you judge whether something was right to do or not to do, depending on whether it came back positive or negative. But in some instances, the fact that you've done something from you is where you feel it's right for you or not right for you, not necessarily because especially when you're dealing with other people, they could react any way they want. Doesn't mean you've done something wrong.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying? So it's just an interesting piece about that. Anything else, Karen, before I move on to Raquel?
Yeah, just you know, Brené Brown. I don't know if any of you have heard of Brené Brown, but she talks about vulnerability.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and that sort of comes to mind, you know, the courage to be vulnerable and the positive that comes from being vulnerable, and linking to what you just said, Frank, about, you know, perception, people's perception shouldn't determine whether that experience was good for someone or not. It's whether it benefits them, and the truth of the matter is the lesson and the growth is with one, isn't it? It's with self.
Yeah.
You know, so turning it on its head, really, from where I started. You know, so and I remember hearing her speak about vulnerability and cringing a bit, but recognizing it's powerful to be vulnerable. It's quite powerful to own up.
It's also counterintuitive, which I think is part of the point, and I'll speak a bit more into that when I'm kind of looking at what Emma's requested for me to do, with kind of breaking it up a bit. But before I go there, Raquel, did anything come up for you? Welcome, Sandra.
Yes, my world changed, yet everything remained the same straight away. Again, like what Karen said, it's my perception changed dramatically of how I saw things, especially. I mean, it was forced upon me. I wouldn't have seen it. It's only when my husband passed away, it was forced for me to see things completely different. So I started to learn, a lot of questions came up. So everything that was, I used to get angry at, and I'll look at it differently. I try to think and look at things in a different way. So I'm asking more questions now rather than reacting. And because of that, I think I've become a bit more confident in what I do now. I mean, something like this, I would never speak out. I probably would sit in the background. So I could see why Karen would want somebody to speak. I would be one of those who just not speak. So the elephant in the room, I will make it be seen. I would actually, you know, it's no longer invisible for me. What was invisible, I now would see and address it. But that's all because of how I see things now differently. I think selfishly, I think it's more about me in the last few years. And other people, I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but yeah, it's more about how I see things and try not to judge other people. I'm still learning not to judge myself as well. So that hasn't gone. I know that's going to take time, but learning not to judge other people has helped me to change my perception. And the blur came into focus. I'm not sure about that, but what I got was like, I am still in a blur.
Okay.
I'm still in a blur.
Yeah. You've pretty much done half the job for me anyway.
I was going to say, as people are talking through it, I'm starting to get it a lot more. So thank you all.
Yeah, same here. Same here.
Hi, I'm okay. Good to have you. Right. Yeah. So basically, for the first verse, like I said, Raquel has basically put it down, and it's about change starts from within. That really is the reflection. The change starts from within, but once the change from within happens, then things out there start to change. That ultimately is what the second verse is then alluding to. I love the reflection on starting judging others, judging yourself. I think when we understand that everything we do outward starts from within, because we are the filter through which it all happens, we begin to understand, and that's what this is calling to, that change really does start with the man in the mirror, because the projections you're putting onto other people. I've got a piece which is not in this book called Thinking for Two, and where this idea where our brain literally not content with trying to think for you, also thinks it knows what other people are thinking of you. And ultimately, whatever you think other people are thinking of you, you have no direct access to that information. So it has to come from your framework, your experience. You're going to make that up based on wherever it is, how you see the world and what you've experienced in the past. Anything else? Because to underline what I've just said there, if you look at the bit where it says great opportunity to own what is mine, the power of change now firmly in my gift. Because this is what is disempowering about projection. Someone else is in the problem. You know, and I wish I learned this, you know, because it saved myself a lot of heartache, really, is this whole idea of the narrative that if only someone else changes, this will change.
That means a lot. Interestingly, Karen, you mentioned Brené Brown earlier on, and I was listening to one of her podcasts recently, and the question that she asked at the end on the quick fire thing was, what is the lesson that you've had to relearn over and over again? And for me, it is that notion of the power is mine to make things change, to make things happen. And I feel that this is something that I've really relearned over the past few months. And you know, I've been kind of going through this whole notion of, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I know I need to do something different. I know I need to be more, and just not knowing where to start and where to make it happen. And, you know, I've progressed in my career so far, my life really, down to other people saying, oh, you'd be good at this, or come and do this for us. And it's always been based on other people. And I think, you know, now I'm at the point which is so empowering and liberating, where I realise that actually it's all within my hands, and just the power that has come from me thinking, right, I'm going to get in touch with this person, I'm going to do this, and actually, you know, the reflection that, goodness me, things happen. And you know, it's common sense, and it should be obvious, yet somehow we lose that every now and again, don't we? And we need a reminder that the power is yours to make that change happen.
Yeah.
So yes, now I get it. I love it. Thank you. Took me a little while to get there, but
that's the power of insight, right? The window into what is there. And that's the beauty of poetry, really. People will take from it what they want and see with it what they see. And again, that's another example in itself of this whole idea that whatever it is we think is out there is coming from within us, really. So that's brilliant. Anything else on this before we do the next piece?
Just a comment.
Yeah.
Unfortunately or fortunately, that power, so when by the time we get to know that the power is within us, we've reached maybe 40 plus, because it comes with years of experience. You don't get that when you are young. There's nothing that teaches you more than those many years. You know, that's all I want to add.
Yeah, there is an element of that, but again, that's kind of what this kind of forum and environment is to say, you know, regardless of age or whatever, this is a pointer. And sometimes you bank it, you don't really see it, and then later on is, oh, this is what we were talking about the other day. It now becomes obvious, because like you say, there is an element of experience that is in that as well. Anything else from anyone else?
Just on that point, I'd say that completely applies to the previous poem that we've just read about the mask as well. Yeah. How, you know, with age, you feel more comfortable in being you. And it's nice to actually care less about what other people think as well.
And sometimes we get a narrative that says, well, it makes you selfish, it makes you whatever. But actually, it's the opposite, because when you start treating yourself well, then you begin to not take on other people's drama, but also you can serve them in an empowering way, because sometimes you enable other people's dysfunction because you're trying to use it to heal yourself. So that there is that element there. And I think going back to one of the things you said, yes, you're right, age could be a trigger for you being you, But if we go to Raquel, and sorry to use that example, but it's what's come out in the room. You were saying, if I remember correctly, Raquel, that actually it's something that would be an unfortunate incident that triggered kind of that transformation for you. Would that be accurate?
That's right.
Yeah.
It was an unfortunate.
Okay.
That forced me to change. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to page 148. We're going to look at a piece. I think we've had more people join us. Hello, Mama Jane and Sybil.
Sorry, I got the time wrong.
That's okay. That's okay. Right. So I'm on page 148 if you have your copy of the book.
Yes, I have.
And so I put this quote in because it was from one of my colleagues, which I thought was brilliant. Perfectionism, procrastination, and protection all begin with the same letter. And that'll become obvious as we read the piece. Must be perfect. Inch perfect, in fact. Just exactly as I imagined it. No point in starting if I cannot get it bang on. Still waiting, no telling. How long before perfect comes along? Just a few things missing from how I imagined it. Answer me this, if you will. If perfect is so perfect, how come it's not the same for all? Who needs this mark that can never be hit? Rather convenient, don't you think? I can see some knowing smiles. And there's some knowing smiles. Anybody want to tell on themselves here?
I can start.
Yeah, go.
For myself, I don't think perfectionism is in me. It doesn't bother me to be perfect. Yeah. Procrastination, yes, I do. I do procrastinate and and linger on it for a while. I do that. I can find myself. Protection, to a certain extent, especially when you think of if you've got family, you've got children, you think of along those lines as well. So you're not only thinking, I'm not just thinking of myself as an individual, I'm thinking of what happens to my children. So perhaps it will go back to procrastination and then protection. So it lingers in between procrastination and protection. So perhaps when that happens, perhaps you might stand in the way of achieving something.
Yeah. So yeah.
You never hit the mark, and then I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I get what you're saying, and we'll expand that. I'll come back to the link between those three words in a minute. So Janie's saying she particularly doesn't struggle with perfectionism. Does anybody in the room struggle with perfectionism?
Yes, I have to hold my hand up.
Okay.
I mean, I see there's 3 P's, and then I see the word fair.
Yeah.
Because perfectionism, procrastinate because I wanted to get it right. But I protect myself by not doing it. So therefore, if I don't do it, then the perfection, I'm not attempting to do it, and it's not there, and I haven't got it wrong. So it stems from fear, and you go around circles, and the truth matches right down to the bottom. You never get there. Where is waster? Such a time waster, and so much energy, and it's projection onto others.
Yeah.
That perfectionism. I had to understand. I had to investigate where my perfectionism came from, because what I learned, my children, I projected it. As a wife, as a mother, I projected it on my children, and I realized from messages, what I learned that I thought that to be wrong was bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I was protecting I didn't realize, and this might sound quite strange, but I didn't realize till later in life that you can make mistakes and it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I was never really taught that. I know that may sound strange.
Mm.
Therefore, I didn't want my children to do wrong because it's bad. And because of what I witnessed when people got things wrong. I never saw forgiveness shown. So, without going too far into it. So I realized, yes, perfection is projection, controlling, so people don't get it wrong or unfair.
Hmm. Thank you very much for sharing that, Karen, and giving us that perspective. Yeah, it's you're right that you've pretty much done that. So perfectionism becomes a method of procrastination in order to protect oneself from what is considered the, how would you call it, outcome of doing something and then being judged wrong. But also I'll bring it round to where we started, that everything starts with us. It's our judgment on it that means it can't afford to be wrong. And yes, we may have got that from someone else who modeled it for us. Maybe our parents, maybe a school or someone we respected. I think, Sybil, you're on twice. We might be getting some feedback from you.
No, I've just switched off my mobile.
Okay. Hi, Sybil.
I'm on my computer now.
That's good. That's good. Great to hear your voice. Anybody else on? We're reading Myth, which is page 148. If you have the book. Anybody else on this perfectionism? Either because it happens, it's something that affects you, or something you've been with someone who has been a perfectionist.
Actually, for me, I entirely resonate with Karen. I think everything she says just almost mimics me.
So share with us then, what is the impact of that? I think Karen mentioned energy and stuff. What else comes from that?
I think I think it's about me living up to my dad.
Okay.
And the feeling of not ever being good enough has caused me to continue to be detailed in everything I do, and procrastination is heavy with me if I can't achieve, or if I feel that I won't be able to achieve even before I've even started.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things Karen was pointing out as well, wasn't it? It's almost a subconscious protection mechanism.
Yeah.
Well, if I say I need to get it perfect, and I can never get it perfect, but if I think there's a chance I might not get it perfect, maybe I won't do it.
Yeah.
And in that sense, that does happen. Yeah. And this is why we're talking about this in the context of taking action, because these are some of the things that could stop you just doing something. So how do you begin to process that and kind of move beyond that then? What kind of things could you?
I think all what we was talking about in the other two poems about my perception and looking at I am good, but that hasn't really helped me to stop procrastinating then. Interestingly, so it's not that I'm not looking at myself positively. Well, I suppose I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
No, that's fine. And there is no magic bullet here. So as we go through, we'll see how that gets answered. Anything else on this one about perfectionism before we move on?
Yes. Don't you think that perfectionism is actually stemming from our own personal ego? For example, you want your child to be perfect because it reflects, you feel it reflects on you. How can your child not be anything but best? how can she not be, I don't know, make 12 A stars, or because you are supposed to be rather bright, smart? Don't you think? I feel that perfectionism reflects more on us who are striving to be that perfect. I don't fall under that category, because I don't at all. And procrastination for me is not actually due to the fact that I don't want to get it wrong. It's just due to my own laziness. I don't get my acts together. I'm not disciplined enough to make out a plan. I want to do A, B, C today. Well, if it's done, fine. If it's not done, okay, I'm retired. So what? Come on, life goes on. That's me.
Yeah.
For me, what I had to understand is where it came from.
Yeah.
I had to investigate why do you believe this? When did you first believe this? Where did it come from? And when I investigated and I understood it and I asked questions, it made sense.
Okay.
And in understanding it, I judged myself less because I understood where it came from. And I was able to forgive myself. You learned that you're a child. You learned that and you never questioned it. Now investigate it. Now you can question it. So what do I do to address it? I have my goals. I set my goals each day, and I write things to do, and I tick them off when I achieve them. So I can monitor, I can see my progress. And I give myself permission that if I don't achieve that particular thing, that's fine. As long as I don't spend a whole day and achieve nothing. And I celebrate what I have achieved. But it's to me, it's judging myself less, apologizing and having a conversation with my children and explaining to them, where it came from, and being vulnerable, making myself, going back to what Brené Brown said, being vulnerable, and it just created a freedom within me. So yeah, that's what I've done, and that's and it is working. It is working. Of course, it's not every day I achieve everything, but I'm progressing. I'm going in the right direction.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Karen, as what you're doing to kind of move through that. And I think one of the things you shared that's very powerful is this idea of judging yourself less and being forgiving of yourself, to say, well, yeah, I set this intention. Circumstances did not conspire for it to occur. Fine. It's okay. You're not going to see myself as less of who I am because of that. I'm going to
hang on.
Yeah, go on, Sandra.
What do you mean by achieving, though? What do you mean by achieving? Because to go through the day without achieving, without I don't know, meeting what your goals are. I don't know what goals you would have set yourself. To even go through the day and survive the day is an achievement, don't you think?
So say that again.
To even go through the day,
yeah,
without achieving, I don't know what goals you would have set yourself. For me, to even go through the days, to survive the day, is an achievement in itself.
Oh yes, I totally agree with you. I mean, through the faith I have, one of the things I've attempted to do is not to bring my faith into this for personal reasons. I thought, let me challenge myself. But yes, God gave me life. The first thing I do when I get up each morning is gratitude. I thank God for breath, for the gift of life, which is breath. I understand that my self-worth comes from God. God doesn't change. God is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So I know I don't change. And I know that because I'm made in his image, I'm beautiful. So, I'm giving you one side, but I bring my faith into it. We're talking about a whole new spectrum, and when I talk about my goals, having given God gratitude for myself, my family, my grandchildren, the roof, the pillow I can lay my head on. I know that I'm safe. totally, completely grateful to God, you know, through the power of the Holy Spirit. Every morning I'm praising. I set my goals. I'm talking about, I work from home. So, you know, and I have my clients, you know, I do my administration, you know, I'm talking about those type of goals. If I get them, I think, right, great, I'm glad I've got them. But life experience is in terms of, so there are two areas. There's my whole life and there's my administration goals. There's things that I need to function with my business.
Yeah.
I get
Yeah.
I think that clears that up. I think Sandra was,
Just in case there's any doubt.
no, it's all right. I think Sandra was about to say something as well, weren't you, Sandra?
Yeah, I think for me, whenever I've tried to achieve perfection, okay, not perfection. Whenever I try to achieve perfection, there's always been something in my way or something to kind of like deter me from doing that.
Okay.
And I feel like I feel like I've always ended up, I don't know, kind of playing catch up with myself in a way, or playing just playing catch up as a result. But you know, God is gracious, and slowly but surely, I'm getting there.
Right. So
That's been my experience.
And that brings us to actually the quote at the first part of the book, which says, "Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better."
Amen.
So it's kind of, that's what's that speaking to, that if we create this idea, because remember the piece itself in the myth says, what is this perfect? Because we can't agree what perfect is, because if you look at the word perfect, it's meant to be a fixed mark of some sort, but that fixed mark is never equal for different people. What's perfect to me might not be perfect to you. So who's making up this perfect? We must be making up our own perfect, right? So if we're making up our own perfect, are we setting a bar that we at the moment don't have the ability to meet? So if we are doing what we know to do, the best we know to do right now, whatever that is, then that's what we can do until we know or receive information. So now that I've done that, actually, I can see now how I could improve it. But if you, for this idea of something that you believe is perfect, that you don't know how to achieve right now, you then don't do anything, then nothing gets done. So in a way, it's almost like agile. Those who do IT and those project management, it's like an agile way of living your life. Do whatever it is you know how to do right now, no matter how someone else might judge it. Really, it's you doing the judging on their behalf, really, but we won't go there. And then when you see it, you can be inspired. When I write these pieces, I don't always, there's very few of these pieces you're reading now that got written and that's it, never touched. It's always, well, that's what the inspiration says. Start writing it, write it, and then look at it again and go, okay, actually, that could look this way, or that could be that. But if I always sat down and says, until it's perfect, not writing anything, then you won't have the book. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to jump in the interest of time to a piece called Acorn. And if we have time, then I'll go back to one of the other pieces I was going to put in. But I think Acorn kind of brings us a perspective that we might not have had from some of the other pieces. This is page 130. Once upon a time, a great big oak from an acorn did grow. The seed impregnated with great potential, physical eyes could not yet see. It, having been sown to give it the chance to grow, joins the magic of the universe, sinking roots deep down while passers-by went about their business, unsuspecting of the greatness hidden in plain sight. As time passes, seasons come and go, till heads turned reflecting in awe, how this great tree was hidden in an acorn so small. What is growing in you?
At my age, what else can grow? I'm old.
Stop it.
What's all this ageism, Mama Kate? Why are you aging yourself?
For the young ones, they can think of something to grow. Me, okay.
No. As long as you have breath, you're growing.
Amen.
Right. That is funny.
Yeah, Sandra and Raquel, oh yeah, you are the young ones. Come on, say something.
Yeah. Right.
I don't support you there. I'm at that age, but I don't think the only person that stops me is me.
Okay.
Nobody else is me. It's me and procrastination, that's all. Because there is something in me that is burning. Perhaps if somebody came and gave me a push.
Well, this book is a push. So you wake up there.
But looking at you, I don't think you can push me.
I said the book is not me.
Right. If there's a link in the chat. If you want to have a chat about the push, then we can talk about that. So anybody else having Acorn resonating, and what's resonating with you?
Frank, this is Acorn. No, you don't know this is Acorn.
Yeah. What else is resonating? Karen, anything from you?
No, it's interesting when you say that. Once upon a time, a great big oak from an acorn did grow. The seed impregnated a great potential. I think I left school and I couldn't read or write. I was limited in my ability to read or write. And you know, the thing that kept me going was I always remember my grandmother saying, "Jesus is Lord." We didn't talk much, but I remember her praying and saying, "Jesus is Lord." And I went on, by the grace of God. I have a law degree. I've done other things, and and God saw potential in me. And because of my faith, I've held on to that faith. And because of that, I've been able to achieve different things. So I see that God must have seen potential in me, even though people are surprised to say, "Oh, you weren't very bright at school." People actually say to me, "You weren't very bright at school. How did you do that?" Most people would have been offended. But to me, it's a testament to the grace of God. And yeah, and sinking roots. Sinking roots deep down. Those experiences that I've gone through are the ones that have helped shape me now and mold me now, empowered me now, enabled me now. So when I hear those judgments, I say, "But God," and I smile. When I share them with people, they look at me like, "That's so insulting." I say, "But if you don't know my journey, if you don't understand it, you would see it as insulting. But I see it as giving God the glory. I see it as God's grace and His mercy."
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my sharing from. Yeah. That's my experience.
Yeah. Thanks for that. And I think.
Just
go on, Sandra. Yeah, go on.
Nothing is wasted. Every single experience, good, bad, rubbish, horrid, disgusting. Nothing is wasted.
That's a good. That's good.
Yes, definitely.
And I think that's the point, isn't it? So what were you going to add to that? Hi, Fumi, how are you? Good to have you here. So I think what's interesting is that if we go back to this idea of creation, right? Because we're referencing that. The when you see the acorn, you look at it and think this is an acorn. But from the source from which it was created, it carries the potential of an oak tree, which we know the difference in size is amazing. Right? So the point here is, it's a matter of seeing the oak tree while looking at the acorn. And that's the question, what is growing in you? That do you see the oak tree? Or are you just focused on the acorn? Because that's why it's also like the magic of the universe, which is a kind of language that we would say God, that's where that's pointing to. In that the metaphor is what we see daily, where things grow, but we don't recognize it until we see the oak tree and go, wow. So that's going back to what Karen is saying. Oh, look at me now. But actually that was always there. It just hadn't manifested.
I must say, Frank, sorry to interrupt. I say that with humility. I thought about sharing that because, I'm humbled by my experience. I always remember where I come from, and what my journey has been. So I never arrived. And that's really important that people hear that I haven't arrived. I'm not like, wow, look at me. It's this is what God has done.
Right. And I think that's what I'm pointing to. Thanks for that. Is that, are we the ones failing to see what is already there but is yet to manifest? Or do we accept that it's there once it manifests? Do you see what I'm saying? So ultimately, it says, while passers-by went about their business, unsuspecting of the greatness hidden in plain sight. And Acorn is greatness hidden in plain sight. Sandra, were you going to say something else about that?
I think I was going to say something like, we're always learning. I don't think you ever stop learning, no matter how old you get. I mean, the way God, I sound so old when I say this. My generation used to do things is actually slightly different to the way my little niece's generations do things. And I'm not even old. Sorry, or that old, should we say. And sometimes I find myself learning from them, like what they know. And I'm like, okay, well, this is new. This is even the way that they teach them in schools these days is not the way that we were taught at all. And I think it's the same thing for like the generation before me. Like the way that they were taught in school is completely different from the way I was taught, and it's completely different from the way my little nieces are being taught these days. So I think if we just have to kind of remain sort of open to learning and and I was going to say, what God can teach us through our experiences and through the experiences of others as well. That will also contribute to our growth and how we relate to people. I'm normally somebody that kind of, if you can believe it, once upon a time, I used to be very, very shy. But one of the promises that, God gave me was that he was going to make me bold. And I know that he did. But even from time to time, I find myself shrinking back. I've got a book out that also Frank is helping me with in terms of the Kindle version of it at the moment. and I'm dreading I'm dreading having to organize people, like either like in the kind of formats to kind of have a meeting and stuff like that and talk about the book and what have you. So I'm having to kind of have that conversation with myself and just say, listen, if you need to do it, you need to do it. Just, you know, just do it.
that is a
just,
beautiful,
just do it.
That is a beautiful segue into the last piece, which unfortunately we won't have time to discuss necessarily, but based on what you just said, I think it's worth reading. It's called The Deed. I feared the shadow of the...
Okay, what number?
144, sorry, yes, I should have told you that. Page 144. I feared the shadow of the honest deed, stalking my thoughts for days on end, evading the light of what could be. In elusiveness, its powers grew. Finally, for a dare, it I did confront. By its spell, I was no longer bound, having nowhere else to hide, powered by the courage from the deed now done.
Mm.
Yep.
Answers everything. Mm.
So,
just gotta do what you have to do in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a moment in time you just decide, okay, let me do this little thing here. Not the whole thing, just let me do this little thing here. And then I'll do the next thing here, and then the next thing here. And then, yeah, you start feeling comfortable. But there is no magic formula.
That's true.
Right. Well, we're somewhat over time, but thank you very much, everyone, for your contribution. I've put some links in the chat. If you're yet to get the book or you'd like to get more copies of the book, I've put some details in there of how you can go about that. If you need to get hold of me by email, it's in there. If you need to book a call with me just to discuss how I can support you further, then the link is in there. If you need to go on the website, there's lots of other poems on the Calm Self website. Again, you can grab the link from there. I don't think we heard from Sybil, unfortunately. Sybil, are you okay there?
Yes, I'm okay. Thank you. I'm just listening.
Okay, that's great.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope you got something from that.
Yes.
Funmi, I know you joined us late, but I hope you got something from that as well.